Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to do some 8.2 homework. So I'm not going to do all the problems today. I'm going to pick one or two from each section to make certain that we're on the right track. So this first section, 22 to 27, is relatively straightforward. We needed to remember SOHCAHTOA. That's the big thing. So I'm going to come over here and write SOHCAHTOA to help remind me of what I'm doing. So if I look at angle D and I need cosine, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So we're working on number 22. If I'm looking at cosine of D and I fill in what I know and what I need to know, my adjacent, well, I have 17 and 8, but I know that 17 is only the hypotenuse. It is not the adjacent. So in this particular case, my adjacent is 8 and my hypotenuse is 17. So that's the answer in fraction format. It also asks for decimal format. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 17. I'm going to hit the decimal point and hit enter. To the nearest tenths, we're going to have approximately, well, I didn't memorize that before I hit that. I'm going to have approximately 0.47. So those are my two answers for this section. And hopefully you remember how to do that. I'm not going to do any more from this section because it's straightforward. You're applying SOHCAHTOA. So sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is going to equal adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over hypotenuse. So let's take a look at this section, 28 through 30. Well, we did an example in class that helped us work with 30, 60, 90 triangles. So I think for this one, I am going to do number 30. So for number 30, we're working with a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So this is 45 degrees, this is 45 degrees. And for my classes, I made you write down a phrase. And I reminded you of this at the beginning class. And we said that the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. So if this is x, then this is x times the square root of 2. So if I want to know the cosine of 45, remember cosine is, ooh, that's not what I meant to do. Sorry about that. That was jumpy. That's ta, and cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And I'm going to fill in what I know. So cosine of 45 degrees equals adjacent. If I'm looking at 45 degrees, my adjacent is x, and my hypotenuse is x times the square root of 2. Now, you would not hand that in to me on a test, not expecting full credit. So you need to remember that you can cancel out those two x's, which is going to leave me with an answer of 1 over the square root of 2. And I will accept this answer. The square root of 2 is an exact number, and I am perfectly fine with that as an answer. All right, use your calculator to find each trigonometric ratio. Which one of these looks tough? I actually think they're all really straightforward. So let's just do tangent of 51. Let's do number 31. So I come to my calculator, I hit control. No, I don't. I do not hit control. I hit trig function, and my options are sine, cosine, tangent. So I'm going to scroll over and hit tangent. I'm going to hit enter. My calculator is in degree mode, so I'm simply going to type in 51 and hit enter. So my answer is, the tangent of 51 is 1.2349, and it wants me to round to the nearest hundredth. So it said 1.234. So I look at my third decimal place. So I look at that 4 and I say that's not enough to cause me to round. So my final answer is 1.23. And it's the same thing for all the rest of those. You hit the trig button on your calculator, find sine, tangent, or cosine, and type in the number and hit enter. Might be a little bit different if you're using an older style calculator or something like the red OGT calculators that we use. All right, this is where things get a little bit tougher, so I'm going to do more than just one problem from this section. So problem number 37 asks me to find PQ. So I'm going to label PQ as X. Now remember, PQ is a length. I will not have a degree answer, I will have a length, okay? So let's talk about what I know. Well, I know label R is, or angle R is labeled. So that's what I'm going to be thinking about what I know in terms of. Can I find angle P? Absolutely. That's just one more step of work, so I'm not going to do any more work than I have to. So what do I know in this particular case? Well, I know 11 centimeters. And in relationship to angle R, what is 11 centimeters? Well, 11 centimeters is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to call that the hypotenuse. This is what I know. And what I need to know, what I need to find out is X, and X is a length of a leg, right? Which leg is it? Is it the opposite leg or is it the hypotenuse? And remember, we're thinking about whether it's opposite or adjacent based on angle R. So angle R is opposite from X. So now I have to think about my abbreviations. SOHCAHTOA. And I'm going to think about which one of those uses opposite and hypotenuse. And it's sine that uses opposite of over hypotenuse. So I'm going to say that angle R, the sine of angle R, is what I need. Okay, so I say the sine of angle R, well, the measure of angle R is 19 degrees. So the sine of 19 degrees equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. And I'm going to think about that. Let's move you over here. Bye, see you later. All right, so the sine of 19 degrees equals the opposite. Well, I don't know what that is. That's X. And we're going to put that over the hypotenuse, and I know that's 11. All right, how do I get X by itself? Well, X is part of a fraction. I'm dividing by 11, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 11. And when I do that, these two things cancel out, and I end up with X all by itself. Write your 11 in front of sine of 19. And now all I have to do is go to my calculator. For all of these, I want you to get X by itself and then go to the calculator. All right, so I'm going to come to my calculator. I'm going to type in 11, and then I'm going to do sine of 19 degrees and hit enter. And so my final answer, and I need to round this to the nearest hundredths, is 3.58. So in this particular case, X is, nope, X is approximately equal to 3.58. So we know in this particular case, PQ is approximately 3.58. All right. I still think that this is relatively new for us, so I'm going to do one more for this section. And just trying to figure out which one is going to be the most beneficial. Let's do number 38. So for number 38, I'm looking for the length of AC. AC is the hypotenuse, and everything I think about is going to be in relationship to angle C. So I need to fill in what I know and what I need to find out. So what do I know? Well, I know 19.2 inches, and as I look at 19.2 inches in relationship to C, I say that's adjacent to. That's 11, no, it's 19.2. And what I need to know, that's X. And when I look at this triangle, I go, X is the hypotenuse. So now I have to think about which one of my trigonometric ratios uses adjacent and hypotenuse? So I'm going to come down here and go, well, that's cosine. Cosine is the one that uses adjacent and hypotenuse. So I will say that the cosine of 46 degrees equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and I'll fill that in. So the adjacent piece, that is 19.2, and the hypotenuse is what I'm looking for, and that's x. I need to get x out of the denominator. I need to get x by itself so that I know how long it is. I'm going to multiply both sides by x. Why should I do that? Well, if I do that, it gets x out of the denominator. It's still not alone, but it's a lot closer to being where I need it to be. So x times cosine of 46 degrees equals 19.2. Keep in mind, when you go to your calculator, cosine of 46 degrees, that's just a number. It feels weird, but it's just that fraction. It's just that decimal point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by cosine of 46, because I'm really just dividing by a number. I have to do something to get that number, but that's all it is. All right, so at this point, I've divided both sides by cosine of 46, so those two things cancel out, and I end up with x equals 19.2 over cosine of 46 degrees. So let's go to our calculator, plug that in, and see what the answer is. All right, so I need 19.2 divided by cosine. So I hit the trig button, hit over to cosine, hit enter, and I'm going to put in 46. My calculator already knows that we're dealing with degrees. So my answer is 27.6395, but I'm rounding to the nearest 100th place. So my answer is going to be 27.64. 27.64 is x. And that's not going to stay. 27.64. X is approximately 27.64. And we were looking for the length of AC. So we say AC is approximately 27.64, and the units that we're using is inches. Our answer for this should have been, for number 37, should have been in centimeters. All right, so that's all I'm doing for that section.
Please call extension 1100.
All right, and the last section that we have to do, problems 62 and 64, and for blocks 5 and 7, I think I didn't tell you that we were not doing 63 and 65, so I apologize. I only am going to hold you responsible for 62 and 64. So we're going to find the perimeter and area of each triangle. Okay, so the perimeter is the easy one. That's the sides. So for a triangle, we typically label the sides A, B, and C. And the area is 1/2 the base times the height. And keep in mind, when we talk about the height, it has to be an altitude. It has to be go from the vertex and hit the opposite side at a 90-degree angle. So in this particular problem, this right here is my height. Okay? So that's what I'll be looking for to figure out the area. All right, so what do I know and what do I need to know? Well, I am missing two sides. So I need to find this right here and I need to find this right here. Now, one of the things that I know is I have a right triangle, so I can use all these trigonometric ratios to work in my favor. So if I'm thinking about this, I know this right here, the thing that I know, 2 meters, that's an adjacent side, right? It's touching the side that we need to find, or it's touching the angle that we know. And I need to know the opposite, and I also need to know the hypotenuse. But I obviously can't work on everything at once. So let's do these two things. And remember, we say SOHCAHTOA. So what uses adjacent and opposite? Well, the thing that uses adjacent and opposite, that's TOA. So I'm going to find the tangent. All right, so I'm going to say the tangent of 24 degrees equals the opposite over the adjacent. So tangent of 24 degrees equals, what's opposite? Well, what's opposite is x. That's something that we need to know. And I know the length of the adjacent side, it's 2. I love these problems because this becomes easy. To clear out that fraction, I'm going to multiply this by 2, and I have to multiply both sides by 2. So when I multiply both sides by 2, those two things cancel out, and I end up with x all by itself. So 2 times tangent of 24. So this is what I need to go to my calculator and plug in. And I'm going to take 2 times, I'm going to hit the trig button, toggle over to tangent, hit enter, and then type in 24 because that's the degrees I'm trying to find the tangent of, and I hit enter, and that says that my x is going to be 0.89. So x equals 0.89, and that feels, it sort of feels wrong, doesn't it? But let's come up here and label this. In this triangle, does it seem unheard of that this short side would be a little bit less than 1 if that long side were 2? Once you put it into perspective, the answer doesn't seem as wrong, does it? So now I'm going to go through and use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for y. Or maybe you want to use trig functions. Let's use trig functions just because we've got them handy, right? So this is what I know and what I need to know. I know my adjacent, I also know my opposite, but my adjacent is a nice whole number instead of a decimal. And what I need to know is now the hypotenuse. So I come down to my SOHCAHTOA and I think about what uses A and H. Well, that's cosine. Cosine uses A and H. So I can say the cosine of 24 degrees equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And let's fill in what I know. Cosine of 24 degrees equals, adjacent is 2, and the hypotenuse is y. And you've been of great service, but I need to move you now. Put that over there. All right. So I need to get that y out of the denominator. I'm going to multiply both sides by y. That's how I get it out of the denominator. This cancels. And so now I end up with 2 on that side, and this side is y times cosine of 24. Cosine of 24 is just a number, right? So if you had 6y equals 2, you would just divide both sides by 6. But you don't have 6. You have cosine of 24, but it's just a number, right? So I'm going to divide both sides by cosine of 24 degrees. These two cancel out. So I'm left with y equals 2 over cosine of 24 degrees. I'm going to go to my calculator and plug some stuff in. I think I'm going to go to my calculator. Where did it go? Oh, what the heck happened? All right. Sorry, everything is now falling apart. So I need to know 2 divided by, go to my trig button, type in, or move over to cosine, hit enter, type in 24 and hit enter. And so my y value is, I need to round to the nearest hundredths place. So my answer for y is approximately 2.19. So y is approximately 2.19. All right. Oh, and this is not exactly, this is a wrong answer. So it's x is approximately equal to 0.89. All right, but we weren't looking necessarily for just x and y, right? We were looking for the perimeter, and the perimeter was the three values added together. So the perimeter is a plus b plus c. And so my perimeter is approximately, well, we'll call x a, and we'll add to that, what was the other side? The other side was 2 meters. So 2, and remember, c is always our hypotenuse. So I'm going to plug in 2.19 for that. I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to do some calculations. And what do I get? That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm tired of fighting the man. So 2 plus 2.89? No, 2.19 plus 0.89. It would really help if I could see what I was doing. So my final answer is 5.08. 5.08. And so that's my perimeter. Now I need to calculate my area. So remember, for our area, we need to multiply the base times the height. I'm actually going to stay up here at this point. I'm going to fill in this. My area is 1/2 my base, which is 2, times my height, which is 0.89. Because 0.89 is an approximate answer, this equal sign is actually going to have to change to an approximate. And this is where being comfortable with fractions really helps. 1/2 times 2. 1/2 times 2 is just 1. So my area is approximately 1 times 0.89, and 1 times 0.89 is 0.89. So my units is meters. My area is 0.89 meters squared. And I need to come back down to my perimeter and say that my perimeter is 5.08 meters. So that's the final answer for that one. All right, last one I'm going to do. We're going to find the perimeter and area of each rectangle. So perimeter equals A plus B plus C. Area equals 1/2 base times height. Will you have a question like this on a future test? Absolutely. So we're going to look at this. And I know 58. I need to know this, and I need to know this. So in relationship to 58, the thing that I know is the opposite side. And for right now, the thing that I need to know is my adjacent side. I also need to know the hypotenuse. I'll do that in a second. All right, so I can say SOHCAHTOA in terms of 58. I need to know which of the trigonometric ratio uses opposite and adjacent. So it's TOA. TOA is tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So I can say tangent of 58 degrees, that's a 58, equals opposite. Well, opposite is 4, and the adjacent is x. I need to get x by itself. Right now it's in the bottom of a fraction. In order to get it out of the bottom of the fraction, I multiply both sides by x. When I multiply both sides by x, I merely cancel those two things out. So now I've got 4 all by itself on the right-hand side, and I have x tangent of 58 degrees. But that really, all right, we're moving in the right direction, but that's not the answer that I need. I need to know what x is. Well, remember, tangent of 58, it's just a number. I can go to my calculator, type in tangent of 58, and it's just going to give me a number. So I'm going to divide both sides by tangent of 58 degrees. So I will end up with x equals 4 divided by tangent of 58 degrees. So I'm going to go to my calculator. And I'm going to do 4 divided by, and I'm going to hit the trig button, toggle over to tangent, hit enter. I want to know the tangent of 58 degrees, so I type in 58 and hit enter, and my answer is 2.49948. I want to round to the nearest 100ths place, so I look at the third digit is 9. That's enough to round up the next thing, which is also 9. So when I decide what to write down for my final answer is going to be approximately 2.5. So x is approximately 2.5. 2.5 what? 2.5 feet. So that's good to know. I'm actually going to come up top and write that in, 2.5. All right, I'm going to switch colors and I'm going to think about how I can figure out what y is. Sure, I could do the Pythagorean theorem, and you're more than welcome to, but I'm going to practice my trig stuff. So what I know is the opposite side. What I need to know is the hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse, that's so. So the sine of 58 degrees, because keep in mind, when I was thinking about this stuff, I was thinking about what these two things are in relationship to that angle. So sine of 58 degrees equals the opposite. The opposite in this particular case is 4 feet over the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is y. That's what I need to know. Same as this last problem. I need to multiply both sides by y to get it out of that denominator. And when I do that, these y's cancel out. So 4 equals y times sine of 58 degrees. Okay, I'm getting closer, but I'm not there yet. I need to get y by itself. Right now, y is being multiplied by sine of 58. In order to get it by itself, I need to divide by sine of 58. Okay, so we end up with y equals 4 divided by sine of 58. So we go to our handy dandy calculator. 4 divided by the sine of 58, and we'll hit enter. So our final answer is 3.392. That 2 is not enough to round the digit in front of it. So my final answer is 3.39. So y equals 3.39. Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wrote that in and I had an issue with this problem because I looked at this and I went, the one thing I know about a hypotenuse is the hypotenuse is always longer than either of the two legs. And when I put that in there and I realized, wait a second, 3.39 is not longer than 4 feet, I realized I had a problem. So when I come back over to the calculator and I look at it, what does it show? It shows that instead of typing in 4 divided by, let's move this over here real quick. Instead of putting in 4 divided by sine of 58, I put in 4 times the sine of 58. So let's do 4 divided by sine 58 and hit enter. And that's going to give me 4.716, which I'm going to round to 4.72. So this is 4.72, and that answer makes a lot more sense because it had to be longer than 4 feet. Okay, so real quick, we're going to look at our perimeter. Our perimeter is A plus B plus C. So 4 plus 2.5 and 4.72. Both of these should say approximately. And my perimeter will therefore approximately be, and I'm going to come back to my calculator and I'm going to do a lot better job typing this time. I'm going to say 4 plus 2.5 plus 4.72, and I'm going to hit enter. And so my perimeter is approximately 11.22, and we're working in feet. So that's my perimeter. My area, I need 1/2 my base times my height. So my area equals 1/2 my base, which is 4 feet, times my height, which is 2.5. So 2.5 is an approximation. So on my next line, I'm going to change that equal sign to approximately 1/2 times 4. 1/2 times 4 gives me 2. 2 times 2.5, so my area is approximately 5 square feet. All right, I apologize for the length of this, but at least you'll be able to check it out on your own time and feel really good about this. So come see me or Mr. Lozar if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.